Hello guys, I am tell you reason of Julian McMahon's death. What would you do if you were born into power, into fame, into the spotlight, but it wasn't your spotlight? Would you follow the path laid out for you, or would you burn the map and draw your own? He was the son of a prime minister. His future could have been predictable: politics, cameras, suits, structure. But Julian McMahon didn't just change his direction, he redefined what it means to choose your own life. He turned away from inherited power and chased something infinitely more powerful: passion. He didn't want to control nations, he wanted to move hearts. And he did. From modeling on catwalks in Europe, to breaking into acting in Australia's Home and Away, to transforming into iconic characters in American TV, he didn't just cross borders, he crossed expectations. He starred in Profiler, became unforgettable as Cole Turner in Charmed, and carved his name into history with the role of Dr. Christian Troy in Nip Stuck. The man didn't just act, he captivated. But here's the part they don't tell you when you're chasing success. Legacy isn't built by what the world sees, it's built by what they feel when you're gone. On July 2nd, 2025, Julian McMahon passed away at just 56 years old after a private and courageous battle with cancer. No social media campaigns, no pity parties, no staged final messages, just quiet strength, just love, just purpose. You see, some people shout for attention their whole lives and leave nothing behind when they're gone. Others, like Julian, speak quietly but leave a roar that echoes forever. He chose to fight in silence, not because he was weak, but because he was stronger than the noise. He didn't want the spotlight on his struggle, he wanted it on his work, on his art, on what he could give before the curtain finally closed. And that's the truth most people miss about greatness. It's not about being loud, it's about being lasting. Julian lived like a man who understood that time is short and art is eternal. He built a life that looked nothing like what was expected, but everything like what was necessary. He gave us passion, fire, elegance, intensity. He showed us that your story doesn't have to begin the way your parents wrote it. It just has to end in your own handwriting. He was living proof that you don't need a microphone to be heard. You don't need applause to matter. You don't need attention to create impact. So the question is no longer, what did Julian McMahon achieve? That's easy. He achieved himself, fully, fiercely, quietly. The real question is, what will you achieve when the world tells you to follow, but your heart tells you to lead? Will you live in the shadows of expectation, or will you rise in the light of your truth? Because one day it will be your story they're telling. And when that day comes, make sure it's a story worth repeating. Julian McMahon was born into privilege. His father was Australia's Prime Minister. From the outside, his future seemed mapped out: politics, prestige, perhaps even power. But Julian saw something different. He saw a life unlived if it wasn't his own. Instead of following the obvious road, he chose the unknown. He turned away from Parliament House and walked towards sound stages and scripts. That decision wasn't just rebellion, it was a declaration, a message to anyone who feels trapped by expectation. You are not your background. You are not your family's job title, your town's limitations, or your past mistakes. You are the choices you dare to make. Julian didn't need to wear a suit to make an impact. He wore characters. He became unforgettable, not because of where he came from, but because of who he chose to become. Let his story remind you, it doesn't matter how you start, it matters how brave you are in rewriting the story. It's not what we get in life, but who we become that matters. Tony Robbins' Julian McMahon had every reason to follow the safe path. Political legacy, public expectations, pressure from every direction to carry the torch of leadership handed down by his father. But he didn't. He chose the fire inside him instead, the one that burned for performance, for creativity, for art. He didn't just turn from politics, he sprinted toward passion. That decision is what made him powerful. Because real power isn't doing what pleases others, it's doing what moves you. It's having the guts to say, this is not my life's calling, and walking straight into the unknown. Julian showed us that passion isn't always convenient, but it's always worth it. In a world where too many people live to meet others' standards, he stood for something bigger: authenticity. He didn't live to impress, he lived to express. And that's your reminder. Just because something is expected of you doesn't mean it's meant for you. Chase what gives you life. Chase what keeps you up at night. The world doesn't need more people following paths. They need more people blazing them. Passion is the genesis of genius. Tony Robbins' Julian McMahon didn't make a spectacle out of his suffering. At a time when many turn pain into content, he chose something few dare to silence. While battling cancer, he continued working, loving, living, without broadcasting the hardship. That is the mark of true strength. Not the strength that demands applause, but the kind that radiates without a sound. He proved that you don't have to shout to be strong. You don't need the world to see your scars, to validate your courage. Julian lived with grace, and he left with honor. His legacy wasn't built on dramatic headlines. It was built in the quiet moments, on set, in conversation, in how he made people feel. That kind of strength is rare. It's the strength that doesn't need recognition, because it knows its worth. If you're struggling silently today, take this with you. Your battle is still valid. Your silence is not weakness, it's wisdom, it's dignity. And sometimes the loudest echo comes from a whisper. The strongest people on earth are not those who show strength in front of us, but those who win battles we know nothing about. Unknown Julian McMahon didn't chase headlines. He didn't live for likes, trends, or temporary fame. He lived for impact. Every character he played, every moment he gave to his craft, he poured himself in quietly, but completely. And when he passed, the world didn't just grieve a celebrity, it mourned a presence. That's the difference between attention and legacy. Attention fades fast. It's loud, urgent, temporary. But impact lasts. Julian didn't need to constantly remind the world of who he was. His work did that for him. His art, his integrity, his kindness, those are the things people remember. Not because he demanded it, but because he earned it. Your life will be remembered for how deeply you loved, how courageously you showed up, and how authentically you lived, not how many people watched you do it. Build something that lives after you. Say what matters. Do what changes lives. Be someone worth talking about when you're no longer here to speak. Because the goal was never to go viral. The goal is to go eternal. Life is not about getting attention. It's about earning respect. Create something that outlives you. Unknown Julian McMahon's life reminds us that greatness isn't measured by fame, but by depth. He didn't follow the script others wrote. He created his own. He lived with purpose, loved with quiet strength, and left a legacy that speaks louder than any spotlight ever could. Your name won't be remembered for how loud you lived, but for how real you were. So write your story with courage, passion, and truth. Make every day count, not for attention, but for impact. The moral is simple. Live in a way that your absence still inspires others to rise. The main thing is left, the full story of his death. Julian McMahon had always been a fighter, both on and off screen. Known for his fierce dedication to his craft and his commitment to his family, he had always been a man who believed in taking life head on. But in 2024, he was given a diagnosis that would change everything. Cancer. The word hit him with the force of a tidal wave. Yet Julian did not allow himself to be swept away by the rush of emotions that came with the news. He processed it, deeply, privately, and in his signature way chose to keep it to himself. It wasn't in Julian's nature to ask for sympathy. He had spent his career playing characters who demanded strength, resilience, and grit, and he knew that his battle would be no different. With the type of cancer that required serious treatments, Julian kept it private, sharing only with those closest to him, his wife Kelly, his immediate family, and his closest friends. To the outside world he continued as if nothing had changed. He kept working. He filmed his final projects, continuing to bring his craft to life, each role with the passion that had defined him for years. But while the world saw him on screen, behind the camera, Julian was facing the most difficult challenge of his life. Each day was a battle. Every morning was harder than the last. Yet Julian chose to do what many of us never do when faced with personal adversity. He chose to carry his burden with grace. He lived as he always had, quietly with purpose, and without complaint. Despite his illness, Julian's professional life didn't stop. His final year in Hollywood was filled with projects that showcased his talent, dedication, and deep love for his craft. Julian was known for his powerful presence on screen. Whether it was playing the charming Dr. Christian Troy in Nip Tuck, or the villainous Victor Von Doom in Fantastic Four, he gave every role the energy of someone who truly lived in the moment. And as his body weakened, he doubled down on his commitment to his art. During the final months of his life, Julian's work was nothing short of extraordinary. He filmed what would become his last major TV appearance, a cameo that reminded his fans of the depth of his acting skills. Even with his health deteriorating, he didn't allow the illness to keep him from delivering some of the most poignant performances of his career. In addition to his acting, Julian worked behind the scenes, mentoring younger actors. He had always been known for his generosity on set, a quiet leader who preferred to uplift those around him rather than compete. He had always believed that success was not just about individual glory, but about helping others reach their own potential. And in his final days, he lived by that belief more than ever. During this time, Julian was often surrounded by his wife, Kelly, who was a rock by his side through his entire journey. Together they found ways to bring light into each other's lives, even when the world around them grew darker. Their bond was unshakable, built on years of love, respect, and a shared commitment to keeping the joy alive. The morning of July 2nd, 2025 came quietly. The world had no idea that it would lose one of its greatest actors. Julian had spent the night with Kelly, the two of them quietly navigating the pain, the uncertainty, and the beauty of their shared moments. They didn't need words. In the months leading up to his passing, Julian had said everything he needed to say. And as he lay in his bed that morning, Kelly could feel that his fight was almost over. There was no fear in his final moments, only peace. In the hours before he passed, Julian took a moment to reflect on his life, his legacy, and his loved ones. His family, his colleagues, and his friends had already been part of his final moments, never far from his side, always offering their love and support. His fight had been hard, but it had been a fight worth fighting. And then in the quiet hours of that morning, Julian McMahon left this world. When the news of his passing spread, the tributes came pouring in. The Hollywood community was in mourning, but it wasn't just the industry that grieved. Fans too felt a deep sense of loss. Julian McMahon wasn't just an actor. They realized he was a part of the fabric of their lives, a source of inspiration. His portrayal of complex, flawed characters had made him unforgettable, but it was the quiet strength he displayed off-screen that left the deepest mark. Julian McMahon had lived his life on his own terms. He didn't follow anyone's script, but his own. He didn't let the pressures of fame, family expectations, or illness stop him from living a life filled with purpose. He had taught us all an important lesson without ever saying it aloud, that living authentically, living with integrity, and living with passion were the greatest achievements of all. And as the world grieved his loss, Julian's legacy began to shine brighter. It wasn't just about his roles on screen, it was about the way he lived, the way he loved, and the way he never gave up, even when faced with something as devastating as cancer. His work continued to inspire those who knew him, and his life continued to be a beacon of strength for those who were fighting their own battles. He showed us all that it's not the loudest voices that change the world, it's the quiet ones, the ones who live with integrity and purpose, who make the deepest impact. Julian McMahon's passing taught us more than just the value of hard work and dedication. It taught us that strength isn't about the loudest performance, it's about the grace you show in your personal battles. It taught us that legacy isn't built by the number of people who watch you, it's built by the number of people you touch. As we remember Julian, we are reminded that it's not how you start that matters, but how you choose to finish. And more than that, it's about how you live in between. Your legacy is shaped not by the things you acquire, or the accolades you receive, but by the lives you touch, the hearts you heal, and the way you inspire others to rise above their own struggles. Julian McMahon didn't just teach us how to act. He taught us how to live.